Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. Hope you're doing well. And doing a letter from a fan over here. A lot of you guys send in questions through our contact portal on the website, theneedledrop.com. And I get a lot of good ones. This one from Zach made me want to revisit an issue that I meant to say something about, although at the time I didn't really have the words, didn't really know what I wanted to say, didn't really know what I wanted to communicate. However, I think this question does help. Zach asks, regarding Linkin Park, do you feel personally that your opinions have changed on One Last Light, given the lyrical content post-mortem? I definitely agreed with your review. However, after Chester passed, the songs took on new meaning. Is that normal after an artist passes? I would say yes, absolutely so, especially when the content of the album has a great deal to do with that artist passing. Case in point, David Bowie's Black Star. It's really eerie, just what David Bowie was saying about his passing on that record, and just, I guess, how imminent he felt his death was. Just his ability to sort of comment on his fame and popularity and sort of, in a way, kind of communicate with his audience from beyond the grave through that album. It's really chilling. You know, the album was good before he passed away, and for him to sort of pass almost immediately after the release, or at least the announcement of his passing immediately after the release, it was just like really close. It was serendipitous almost, and, again, sort of added a certain level of eeriness to the album that, I think would have been not quite so present had David Bowie passed maybe a month or so after. You know, it certainly changes the impact of the content of the album for sure, certainly. And you know what? Even for the passing of artists, who came long ago, to listen to like the final Joy Division album, and to know that Ian Curtis would pass, not too long after the creation and the recording of that album, is sort of eerie given the lyrical content of that album. And, in a way, I think Chester's passing certainly puts the lyrics on One Last Light, in a new context, and really kind of the entirety of the Linkin Park discography. Now, has Chester's passing made this album grow on me personally? Not really. A lot of my reservations with the album had to do with the sound of the album, the stylistic direction the band was going in, and the instrumentation, just how digital and how glossy and how sanitary and just how gutless a lot of the beats sounded. Didn't feel like the hip-hop influences that I typically enjoy on some of the band's older stuff were not as present as I would have liked them to be. All of that, unfortunately, still stands. That has not changed with Chester's passing. However, it is certainly worth looking back at his lyrics and trying to gain new meaning from them, and just, I guess, kind of understanding that a lot of the pain and the sad introspection of Chester's lyrics was not just for show, was not just, something he was parading around just to put into his music for the sake of doing so. Just to make the record. It came from a real place. And I think that is really ultimately what I would like to take this opportunity to comment on, because I feel like there is quite a bit of sad music out there, but I feel like there's like a really weirdly intimate disconnect between the artist and the audience a lot of the time, because I feel like we're so used to and have almost taken for granted that there is so much sad music out there that it's almost just kind of like, it's almost like the sadness isn't even real. It's like the sadness isn't even really truly impacting or, sort of being taken seriously or being taken for what it is by the audience, and almost like it's being taken for granted when, it should be understood like that suffering that's sort of thrown onto an album, it can come from a very real place and, could potentially drive people to do what Chester did, and unfortunately, I don't see a whole lot of fans, in some cases, sort of being understanding of the mental illness or the depression that a lot of artists suffer from. I just recently saw that video that Sinead O'Connor put up on Facebook where she was talking about how essentially, like, her family, her friends, her fans, because of her mental illness, because of her volatility, because of the difficulties she had, have essentially just kind of abandoned her, and she's living in a freaking, New Jersey motel somewhere. I'm sort of taking what she said at face value. Obviously I don't know every intimate detail of her personal life at this point, but I feel like, again, there is sort of a disconnect there between, fans and the artists, especially when you do talk about a band like Linkin Park that is so high profile, they're so popular, they're so top 40, their music in a lot of ways is so omnipresent that, and there are so many qualities of it that are so catchy and so pleasant to listen to that sort of the dark emotional underpinnings of the band Linkin Park, or some of their music or some of their songs, don't necessarily hit you right away. Sort of the balladry and the very clean, tight, punchy production are most likely what's kind of hitting you first. It's not really necessarily the recesses of emotional, sadness that, maybe hitting you right off the bat, maybe unless you're, sort of an angsty or sort of very sensitive teenager, as I and many people were when Linkin Park originally broke on the scene. I mean, certainly, those lyrics were probably speaking to us. But sort of over time, as the band grew less popular and, they sort of fell into a formula, maybe sort of that attitude, that depression, that sadness, that emotion that fueled the band's music just kind of maybe played less of a pivotal role, or took, was not so much at the forefront of the minds of the audience, and maybe we're not as concerned as maybe we should have been. Sort of took the messages and the sort of sadness that permeated all of their albums not as a cry for help, but rather that's just kind of their style, and that's just kind of what they do, rather than maybe, thinking about, well, this has been ongoing for a long time, and it seems like, this is sort of like a place that Chester continually writes from, should we be wondering about this? Again, I feel like the audience kind of takes sadness for granted just merely as entertainment a lot of the time in music. Which is one of the few genres that when you have an artist sort of writing about a sad thing or writing something depressing, it's sort of almost understood and assumed that that artist has directly experienced, or is that thing that they're singing about, or is just like literally suffering right there in front of you, but with a guitar in their hand. And that's really kind of the only thing that makes the fact that they're doing that suffering right there in front of you on a stage acceptable. So, I don't know. It certainly brings new context to the album. But I wonder if this will sort of make people, kind of rethink suffering and sadness in music, and, whether or not we've sort of caught ourselves in a spot where we find sadness entertaining, and somehow as a result of that, we've become maybe a little more callous to it when we're faced with the reality of those problems, or have sort of maybe not grown callous, but, sort of don't think of it as important, or don't think of it as a warning sign. We just sort of think of it more as just like, oh, they're just being entertaining. They're just writing a sad song because that's entertaining. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you very much for watching. Hit me up down in the comments with your thoughts. And over here next to my head is another letter from a fan video that you should check out, or click on the link to subscribe to the channel. You're the best forever.